your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is Karen Asp, and she is a journalist, but she's more than that. She's also a world-class athlete. She's written books. She's really multi-talented, and of course, she's plant-based, and I love her plant-based story, which I learned about listening to a podcast, how she once told a cow that you were my friend, and I don't eat my friends. I love that because I saw that saying a long time ago. I've been vegan almost 44 years. And I remember once seeing a saying that, animals are friends. We don't eat our friends, something like that. And I think of that today. I wouldn't eat my dog, so why would I eat a cow or a pig or anything like that? Please welcome to the show, Karen Asp. It's so nice to connect. Actually, we've never really connected face to face before, have we?
We haven't, Chef AJ. And let me just say that I'm honored and thrilled to be on this podcast or show and appreciate everybody who's tuning in and listening. And no, we've never done a face-to-face. You and I I've interviewed you for stories throughout the years, and you and I are, of course, doing something together right now for Forks Over Knives, just FYI for all those people who are fans of that magazine. But it's always been through email, texts, all that good stuff. So
yeah, I've never seen you because you look great, you look fit, and it's you're a world-class athlete. I'm not even sure the sport that you do when you wrote about it.
Don't worry, nobody is. It's a sport called Nordic Walking, and it was started in Finland, actually, in the 1960s by an elementary school teacher who just wanted to get her students to move. And in the European culture, they use poles a lot. So when you go trekking or hiking, obviously when you ski, whether it's downhill or cross country, you're going to use poles. Europeans are much more accepting of using poles. Anyway, this evolved throughout the years, and eventually some of the cross-country ski teams, the national teams, began using Nordic walking as dry land training. So there are certainly a lot of other methods that they have to use to train during the summertime, but this was a way that they could still utilize the poles and get some kind of a really different but good workout. And so Nordic walking is, as it sounds, it's walking with specially designed poles. You can't use, let's say, your trekking poles, you can't use your cross-country poles, you can't use your downhill skiing poles. You gotta have Nordic walking poles. And it kind of looks like a funny sport because you're walking with poles. And I have a lot of people, especially, gosh, I was introduced to the sport, I think in 2007, maybe maybe 2006, anywhere, somewhere around there. And I started competing in it in 2008. And I'm on the trails constantly where I live in Indiana, and we're a little conservative here. So things take a while to get going, but even Nordic walking isn't so popular these days here in the States. But I have had so many people throughout the years, even now, say to, yell out their car windows, are you asphalt skiing? Where's the snow? Things like that. So it's regular walking. You're walking on regular pavement. You can do it on trails. You can do it in the grass. You can do it on sand. You can even do it in the snow. But you're walking with poles.
What benefit? Because I remember being at a conference and being given these poles, and I mean, what benefit do they have, and are they hard to use, and where do people compete in this sport?
Oh, so Chef AJ, so the benefits are amazing. If I could put everybody in poles and just have them walk one time with poles, I would. So the benefits are, first of all, if you're a walker, if you enjoy walking and that's your primary activity, we know that that's the number one activity around the world, right? It's the most popular in every country, including the United States. The problem is that most people underwalk. Walking is fantastic for health. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't get out and walk no matter the speed, but if you're looking for fitness benefits, you need to pick up the pace. Picking up the pace is a little difficult for a lot of people. It's harder to walk fast. The biomechanics, unless you've trained to walk fast, it's not always easy. So what the poles do is they allow you to move a little bit faster than you might, but they also pull in the whole entire body. So I shouldn't say whole. I think that EKG studies, when they've done on Nordic walkers, about 90%, 93% of the body, the muscles in the body are used. When you walk, you're only using primarily from your core down. You might pump your arms and they might get a little bit of action, but it's minimal. And the same thing with running too. You're not using much. So the benefits, again, you can increase the benefits that you're getting from your walking. So it is a low impact, also it's a low impact activity. So if you have any kind of joint issue, let's say you're a runner and you're coming off of a hamstring injury and you want something to do that will give you a similar intensity as running, but without the impact, you can go Nordic walking. So it's a low impact sport. It's a full body sport. You can make it as intense or not as intense as you want. So you'll see, especially in Europe, a lot of people use the poles when they're, let's say, sightseeing in the cities. And it doesn't have to, it is a lot for the older population, but it's not just for the older population. Again, that's on the very minimal side of what Nordic walking can do, but you can take it all the way up to the very intense level. You can do all sorts of plyometrics with the poles. Again, what you're getting is just a fuller body workout. You get development in the upper body. So the back of the arms, the triceps get very, very developed. The core stability really comes into play. So you get a lot of core work. And you also get a lot of the backside of the legs too. So a lot of the gluteus maximus, the hamstrings, that sort of thing. So it's really it's a fantastic activity.
Do you still do it?
I still do it. I don't compete as much, Chef AJ. And that was your question as to where you can compete. And unfortunately, North America has not ever really embraced Nordic walking, but we certainly did have. That's where I did all of my world championships, was in the United States. And so I would compete, and I was with all of the marathoners, the regular marathoners. So people who are running, people who are walking, and here was me with my poles. And there were several of us with poles and things like that. But right now, the only places to compete are in Europe. Europe has still embraced it. Again, Americans just have never gotten over when I put poles in people's hands, they love them, Chef AJ, but do they stick with it? Again, it's one of those things when you kind of feel like you're the oddball of the group. Again,
I know that's what that feels like. I went vegan in 1977.
I
so.
know. And it's a similar thing now, even when people do go vegan, there's still kind of, we're a very small percentage of the population. And so they feel like a misfit. Well, when you walk with poles, yes, stand out like a sore thumb. And it's not always easy.
Gina says you have a photo of you walking with them so they can see what they are. And Natalie says she bought a pair at a conference 2 years ago. They're still in the trunk, never used. And you're inspiring her to use them. I was given a set, and because I feel like if I'm going to walk, I got to have my dog with me. And it was really hard to walk my dog with the poles. And if I walk without my dog, I feel like I'm cheating on my dog. So I gave them to a friend, and she said she uses them.
Yeah, no, it's great, Natalie. Great for you for getting them and then pulling them out again. Honestly, it's a fantastic workout. And I would encourage people, if you do have poles, to give them a try. I think, Chef AJ, you'll probably you can find me easily, though, if you just Google my name, but I'm always happy to answer questions. And in fact, the interesting thing about what we've been experiencing for the past year is I have never had so many people. Now, this is maybe like 8. That's a lot of people asking me questions about Nordic walking starting back in March. And I think a lot of it was an outdoor activity that people could do. You could, stay distanced. It's a solo activity. So if they were looking for something different than, say, regular walking or running, this was a good alternative.
Nice. Well, you look very fit. So I didn't realize, we met because you write articles for Forks Over Knives, but you also write for so many other publications. Yeah. And I think it's great because you're vegan, and even when you write for non-vegan magazines, you can kind of maybe push the vegan stuff in a little bit.
Yeah, Chef AJ, and that's what's been really rewarding. And in fact, I remember, years ago when I would try to write the word vegan into an article, instantly my editors would cut it. And I'm like, that's the one word that's not going to make it in. Now it is so much easier to have the word vegan in. Of course, we still use, and I know you're not either, a fan of the word plant-based. We have that term as well that gets put into a lot of articles, and it is what it is. But yes, it's becoming a lot easier. And what's interesting, Chef AJ, too, is that usually in articles when Again, the writer, you have to understand any article that you read has a bias. What's the bias? The writer who's writing the article. We all see life through a different lens or our own lens. And so when I'm doing, let's say, nutrition articles, and it's not for forks over knives or another publication that is, like Veg News, I'm going to still choose, if they say, well, what are the best sources of name a nutrient? I'm always going to put the plants. I exclude, the animals. Well, one occasion, and that usually flies right now, that's fine. One occasion I had recently in which one of my sources said, when they went and magazines do fact checking, the source, this was actually a digital publication, thank goodness. But the source said, wait a minute, I want to add not just quinoa, but I want to add chicken and pork and XYZ. And I saw the article come out with my byline on it. Often I don't get to see the finished copy. And I asked my editor to remove my name from the article because I couldn't have that be my name and have me promoting animal products. So,
well, good for you. So what publications do you write for, and which are some of your favorite?
oh, wow, gosh, that's like naming your favorite child, your favorite animal, your favorite companion animal. No, Chef AJ, I've been really blessed throughout the years. I write for most of the women's magazines. So throughout the years, I was a contributing editor at Women's Day. I still write for these publications, but I'm a contributing writer right now for Veg News. I handle all of the pet features for Better Homes and Gardens. But I write for, Martha, which is now digital, Martha Stewart Living, Eating Well, Clean Eating, really the gamut. Women's Day, Women's Health, Good Housekeeping, Prevention, Real Simple, Reader's Digest, USA Today. There's a lot of them.
Were you a journalist first or a vegan first?
I was a journalist first, Chef AJ, although what do we always say? We wish we would have switched to being vegan a lot earlier. I wish that I would have come into this world as a vegan, but of course, many of us don't. Maybe that will change, but no, I was a journalist first, and then really became got into fitness very heavily. I was always very motivated to be active throughout life, and I have my parents to thank for instilling in me the love of movement. And I just carried that through. I was an athlete through high school and college, but I went into journalism. And at the same time, though, I was teaching fitness, and I ran my own personal training business and things like that. And at the time, Chef AJ, we were just talking about eating clean, which I hate to say, it was like, choose ground turkey over beef, which I shudder to think about. But anyway, it was 20 years ago that I actually started my vegan journey and went vegetarian and then moved into veganism. And now, again, just wish I had done it much earlier for the animal's sake in particular.
I'm glad you did it. I'm glad that someone with Karen's lens is writing across the board. So that's great. So now did they know you as the vegan writer, or they just, they don't know that about you? The magazines that aren't vegan, like Veg News and Forks.
Well, a lot of my editors do know that I am vegan. And so when a vegan article comes up, so it's a two-way street, as many people may or may not know. I pitched article ideas to my editors, and then they come to me with ideas as well, or assignments. And a lot of them do know that I am vegan. And so not only do I have my experience, but I'm certified in plant-based nutrition. I work as a vegan mentor with PETA, volunteer, I should say. So they know that, and they'll give me the stories that kind of lean that direction, just because I have that experience. So yeah, it does help.
Are most of the articles you write in the health and fitness space?
They definitely are. I mean, I made my name in fitness as far as like the journalism side goes. It's fitness, it's health, it's nutrition. It's also, while this was kind of pre-pandemic. It was travel. And I have published a few travel pieces since, but that's been a little bit low. And then also animals. So I write about not only companion animals, but farmed animals. I work with sentient media, for instance, on kind of exposing some of the issues that, are facing. I did some pieces on, animal shelters, why, you don't want to be serving animals at your fundraisers or
I know,
any.
that was so weird. Like, I mean, I love Betty White, but like she would for the SPCA or whatever, and then
Yes.
they'd at the dinner, and I'm like, really? This makes no sense.
That one, yes. I'm very happy to report though, Chef AJ, that the shelter where I actually volunteer I think it was about 3 years ago, and this was a little tough for me to accept until 3 years ago, adopted a policy that only food that they would serve to staff and volunteers is vegan. They still, however, have a meat dish or two at some of the fundraisers. Again, it's tough. But yeah, so I did that one recently. And then another one that I did for Sentient Media, which was also very interesting, was why aren't more veterinarians vegan?
Yeah, that's weird. And you know what blew me away to find out that there were veterinarians that were actually hunters. I mean, I knew this veterinarian, and
Right.
he actually, like, he got this award for like doing orthopedic surgery on a deer, and then in another day he just goes out and shoots other deer, and I'm like, this is so bizarre.
It is. And again, Chef AJ, you know this. I mean, when you're a vegan, and I've said this to other people too, you see life differently. Your lens is just so different. And it's a cow is a pig, is a dog, is a human, basically. I mean, we're all the same. We're all sentient beings. And it's just when you live this lifestyle and you kind of look at the world, you're just like, whoa, how are people not understanding the dichotomies that are out there? So, yeah.
I ask myself that every day.
I know, right?
Maybe there's not a lot of veterinarians that are vegan. There are some, but more veterans are becoming vegan, because I've interviewed quite a few of them on the show, people that are in the armed forces.
Right, which is also awesome. I mean, yes, the more people that we can move into this movement, the better the world will be for all of us, not just our health, but the environment, animals, social justice movements, all that stuff.
So your hat says The Beat. That's one of the online publications you write for.
It is, yeah. It is, and that's one of the newer ones that has sprung up throughout the years. I was going to say it's recent 2 years. But yeah, so The Beat is actually kind of a little bit of a sister company now with Forks Over Knives. So I do a lot of work with both publications, and so it's fun talking. I get, Chef AJ, like you, get to interview so many people on not just your show here, but also your summits, which are always fantastic. And I tune into them all the time. But I get to interview these people too. And so it's a lot of one-on-one interviews. And it's thrilling for me to be able to work in this space and have that opportunity. So
A couple of your interviews have helped me out, because they've been on guests that I were going to have on, like Dr. Betty. So you saved me a lot of legwork by doing those interviews.
Yeah, no, Dr. Betty was a great one. It is a lot of fun. So yes, you're welcome.
Yeah. So, one of the most popular questions almost every guest on the show gets asked, if no, is like, when you became vegan and why.
So mine is an interesting story. I became vegan for the animals, and animals will always be number one for me, but that does not discount health. I mean, health is super strong, environment super strong as well, but animals number one. And I had a very odd experience almost 20 years ago, and this is kind of what kicked it off. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I was in the fitness industry and doing a lot of teaching and training and actually moving into being a presenter, but I was working with a lot of companies in the fitness space. And again, we talked about clean eating, and blows my mind, but I had already started kind of moving red meat out of the diet because it wasn't clean. I can't say, like I told you earlier, ground turkey, that's not clean either. But I had already stopped red meat. Well, interesting. I had a very odd fainting experience. No known reason, no nothing. I fell back like a tree, hit my head hard on the ground. I concussed. I was out for a few seconds, went to the hospital though as a result, wound up with a skull fracture. And the interesting thing is that for a short while, I lost taste and smell. And my husband and I are used to, we always go out. During the week that I was after in the hospital, I was just for overnight. I was then home recovering on my own. We went out to dinner as we normally would at one of our places, and I did not eat steak very frequently, maybe once or twice a year. That was maybe the one time that year that I ordered steak. This is before I was even vegetarian. And, Chef AJ, I knew where food came from, but I didn't know where food came from, if that makes sense. And I remember I was depressed already. I had, massive headaches, ringing in the head, just all sorts of issues going on. And I sat at that table and I looked at my steak. It was normal. It was all blah, blah, blah. I took a bite of it and all I could do was think that I was eating the carcass of a dead animal. I had to get up from the table and basically chuck it out of my mouth. It was the first time that I'd really made that connection. I mean, again, I knew where food came from, but as I told you, I didn't know. And I think what happened is that without taste, people talk about how they crave, let's say, bacon, or they crave, I don't know, pork barbecue. Well, you're not really craving the dead animal, right? You're not craving the meat.
Sauce, you want the sugar, fat, and salt. It's like so obvious. It's like when people say it doesn't have any taste. Well, yeah, no, nothing has any taste.
But Chef AJ, until I didn't have taste, until that taste from me was taken away, and it's back, so everything's fine. But until that happened, I really kind of had still the disconnect. I was an animal lover. I had all the animals in my life, etc., but I was still eating them. And after that happened, I said no more. We went on a hiking trip to Austria after that, my husband and I, and we had a beautiful hiking day, blue skies. I mean, it was gorgeous. And it was one of those days where you felt like the Von Trapp family was going to come singing across the fields, Sound of Music moment. Well, when you hike in Austria or Germany, Switzerland, the cows are out with you. So I would hear the cowbells in the distance. And as soon as we came upon the cows, I focused on one in particular, and I always say hi to the animals and talk with them. And I went up to one in particular and just really had a moment. And it was that moment where I said to the cow, you know what? I am completely done with eating you and all of your friends. And for me, friends, not food has become my mantra. I have a lambskin top that has friends, not food on it. It's on my cell phone, things like that. But really that started my journey. I wish that I had been able to go vegan right then, but it took me a little bit of time to move all of the animals out of my diet. And like many people, cheese was the big holdover. And why? Because I moved in and out of veganism for probably about the next 8 years. So I'd be vegan and then I'd go get pizza with my husband, and it was, well, okay, I'll accept the pizza with the cheese on it. And I also was traveling as a journalist at the time, and a lot of, or starting to cover, I should say, travel. As a journalist, I'm very blessed in that I have a lot of opportunities to go on hosted trips. So these are where people are taking me to places and they're whining and dining and they're showing me the great this and that, and we're doing all sorts of fun things. I also felt pressure from all of the, peers around me, my colleagues. There might be 5 or 8, depending on the group size of their journalists. And I was always the only vegetarian, certainly. And by the way, I went vegetarian, then pescatarian, and then vegan, but certainly the only one who wasn't eating any animals. And to say, I'm vegan, I was just like, oh, how do I do that without offending my hosts, without offending the chefs, and without looking like that one who was just the troublemaker in the group, which is not anything that I've been used to being in my life. So long story.
Well, everybody, that's what I do. Really, I do like hearing people's stories on when they went vegan and why. But again, I love that and Linda Middlesworth, who is the quintessential ethical vegan, is watching, and she says, I love her because we love when the compassion piece is there, because that's not always the first reason. And we don't care why people go vegan, if
right.
it's or their health because the animals benefit. But I find that when people have that ethical piece, they stay vegan. Whereas if it's like their health and then their health gets, well, the environment ain't getting better, but people go for their health and then their health improves. And so it's like, if they don't have the ethical piece, they can have, a piece of fish once a month, because that's probably not going to hurt their health, but it does hurt the health of the animal that you're eating. So yeah.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, Linda. Yeah, because I think that I find that too, that if you do it for the animals, it does keep you in it. It's your why. It's, I want to give a voice to the animals. I want to be the one who helps other people take animals off of their plate. And yeah, it's definitely, for me, that's the driving force behind it. So
you said you live in Indiana?
I do.
Have you always lived there?
No, Chef AJ, I haven't. I will say, though, I've lived here for longer than I thought that I would, right? We kind of get stuck in places. But yeah, I upstate New York and then Tennessee and then here in Indiana. And it's also been interesting to be a vegan in the Midwest and in Indiana in particular. It's gotten where I am in Fort Wayne, which is the second largest city in Indiana, in case anybody needs that stat for whatever reason. It's gotten a lot easier to be vegan. And I think that, I see that in my travels too. I travel around the world, and pre-virus, I haven't actually traveled in a year almost. But pre-virus, I was on the road every 3 weeks going around the world. And you see that everywhere. It's so, so, so much easier to be vegan these days. It's still not always easy, but it's easier for sure.
Yes, I don't think of Indiana as a mecca of veganism.
No, but we have some amazing, Chef AJ, some amazing restaurants. And it is somewhat surprising when you come here. Certainly, though, I have to say, I've been to other places in the United States, Chef AJ, where it is incredibly hard. I mean, incredibly hard to find, when you're a traveler and you don't have, let's say you're staying in a hotel room. Again, this is all pre-virus, but you're staying in a hotel room, so you don't have a kitchen, you don't have any place that you can, quote unquote, cook your food. And so you're relying on going out. Oof, I'll tell you, there are some places where it is tough. In some countries too. I remember I was in, where was I? I was in Hungary, and we were taking a walking tour, my husband and I, and the tour guide said, "Is anybody here vegetarian?" Didn't even say vegan, and I was vegan. And I just, raised my hand thinking that the next question was, "Are you vegan? Who's here vegan?" But he stopped at vegetarian. I was the only hand in like a group of 30 that went up. And he looked at me, he's like, "I don't know what you're gonna eat. I'm so sorry for you."
God, how long ago was that?
That was a while ago. So I think that things have changed. I think that was probably about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I do remember, Chef AJ, I travel, one of the things that I do this anyway, but I travel with a stock of food just in case I'm ever in a bind. So that would be, for me, nuts and seeds, especially because in Hungary, I was eating mainly lettuce and tomatoes and onions, which is what every restaurant seemed to have.
Wow, but you must have starved.
Well, again, I come with, a cadre of food, so often nut butters. And again, I know that's, if that fits into your diet, but it certainly is easy to travel with. And so, yeah.
So our viewers write the best questions. I love this one from Mandy. Is there a story or an article that you are especially proud of that you've written?
Oh, Mandy, gosh, that's a great question. I have been freelance for 24 years, and it is so hard to remember every single article. So, Mandy, I'm probably not going to give this the best justice, I should say. But I will say that there is one standout that I did, and this is years ago. I mean, I'm talking like 20 years ago. And I think it was for Cooking Light. I did an interview with Jack LaLanne.
Well, that's so funny, because when people say, "What's your favorite interview?" I say his wife.
Well, I didn't interview his wife, but I interviewed Jack. And I got to tell you, that interview still sticks in my head as being, first of all, one of the best interviews, just because I was in awe of Jack LaLanne. I think it was maybe for his 90, I can't remember what we were doing. It was some birthday celebration that he had. But anyway, that was probably one of the most inspiring Mandy stories that I have written, but I've certainly been proud of a lot of stories throughout the way. Like I said, the most recent ones that I've written for Sentient Media probably would rank high too. They're also the ones most recent in my head. I did one for Veg News not too long ago, probably actually about a year ago, in which we looked at how 7 animal sanctuaries were surviving through COVID and what they were doing and things like that. And I got a lot of responses from the animal sanctuaries back saying that that article got them a lot of exposure, got them a lot of people interested in their cause, and did raise not just awareness, but raise some money for them. So that one also really struck at my heart as well. So good question, Mandy. Gosh, I'll have to go back and think on that one. That'll probably keep me up at 2 a.m. or wake me up at 2 a.m. this morning.
The answer immediately. So since you work with Veg News, can you get them to be more healthy vegan? Because I love Colleen, but everything is about I mean, it's like there's never a balance in that magazine of anything that's healthy.
Well, I think that Veg News' angle is to cover everything vegan. And Chef AJ, you and I know that the terms, being an English major, I'm conscious about the words that we use, and words do matter. So vegan to me means something different than plant-based. And I know that, I think, Chef AJ, you like to say plant exclusive.
Yeah, I've never liked the word plant-based because that doesn't tell me anything.
Oh, I hate it.
Because and I love Colin Campbell, who coined it, and I know whole food plant-based is a little bit better, but you plant-based, that could be that 51% vegan and 49% animals. You know what I mean?
And I've had people, right, and I've had people say, "Well, I ate an apple today. Does that mean that I'm plant-based?" I'm like, "Well, for that 10 minutes, you were." I mean, but so yeah, I've had some people say, "Well, 51% to 100%, blah blah blah, whatever." But so I actually like to refer to it as a plant only. So when I tell people, now certainly when I'm talking to chefs, it's very easy. When I'm traveling, it's very easy to say vegan because that's understood. I define it though as I follow a plant only diet and a vegan lifestyle. So I think that, back to your original question, Chef AJ, Veg News really just focuses on the vegan side. That being said, the difference between Veg News and Forks Over Knives is Forks Over Knives is truly the plant exclusive, plant only, healthy magazine. That's their focus. That's their shtick. And I hear what you're saying. I just think that Veg News wants to, go after the vegan side of things, which I'm fine with, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but to even like once in a while have an interview or an article, because I feel like they exclude healthy vegans, and it's kind of like,
I'll have to work on that.
Nice if, have like a little article where they could, I don't know. But anyway, I've been asking Colleen to be on the show for a long time, but she's been shying away from it. But Jasmine Singer's going to be on soon. So.
Great. Jasmine's awesome. So
yeah, I love her. Okay, so let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Karen says, I suspect magazine sponsors and advertisers can affect what the articles are. Is that true?
That is true. To some extent, it is true. And so if you look at some of the major magazines, just any magazine that you would see on a newsstand, the popular women's magazines, et cetera, much of the content, I can't say that the advertising drives the content, but we definitely have to be aware of what we're saying sometimes in the articles based on the advertisers, if that makes sense. So it's not always top of mind, but occasionally I'll get a note back from an editor saying, "Hey, Karen, we need to be careful about saying this or phrasing it this way." So that does play a role. I can't say though, like I said, that it's a huge, huge, huge role necessarily. But it certainly does have a part in it.
Nice. So in addition to articles, you also have written like 2 books. I did not know that until I was listening to a podcast with you this morning. You want to show them and tell us about them?
Yeah.
What's like better, writing whole books or writing articles?
So I have two books, Chef AJ, and the first one is a little bit older. That one's Food Allergies and Food Intolerances, and for some reason I didn't grab that one. But I do have the latest or the second one that I released was in 2019, and it's called Anti-Aging Hacks. I know when people do this and they show, I don't know if everybody can see that, but that's what the book looks like. It's 248 really simple strategies to living healthier and happier. And it is not a vegan book per se, so it won't shout vegan at all from any of its cover, back, whatever, but it's all vegan inside. And so every tip that you get, things like that, will have that vegan angle to it. But yeah, it's just fun little 248 hacks to help you live a little bit longer. Their diet, their fitness, there's a little bit of health, actually a lot of health, beauty, things like that. So there's just a whole compendium of quick hits that you can just do. You don't have to do them all. You might like some versus others, things like that. And as far as do I like writing books or articles, I've only written two books. The first one was with two Harvard physicians. This one was by myself. I do enjoy writing books. They're a different process. And I really actually love magazine articles because I love researching a specific article for just a short amount of time. I love digging into the research. I love talking to researchers. So, the study authors and things like that. And I'll, like I said, I'll often talk with them before the studies are being released. And, just like you see, if you see an article, for instance, in, let's say the, I don't know, the LA Times, Washington Post, that journalist has gotten the advance, they've seen the study before it was released. So yeah, but I like doing both, but I'd say articles I really, really prefer.
So Cheryl writes, thank you, Chef AJ. I have the same issue with Veg News. I stopped my subscription because this magazine isn't health-based. So I'm not asking them to be health-based. I'm just asking them to be more inclusive because there's different kinds of vegans.
Right.
And if we want to people based on race and age and all these things, because to me, veganism is about inclusivity. They completely ignore a whole population of vegans that they maybe don't agree with. And I think that they could be more inclusive and get more subscriptions if they just dealt with it a little bit. I don't mean the whole magazine, but like one writer like me that does healthy stuff, or that's what I'm saying. But
all right, I will work on that. So good point.
Have you ever done an article on you? Have you ever been on the other side of this?
You know what, Chef AJ, I have, and it's always weird because I mean, you and you're interviewing me. I'm usually the one on your side of the coin, but yeah, I have, for instance, Nordic Walking. There are many European magazines. I can't read them because I don't read German and I don't read Spanish, and they don't. I wish that I did, but they don't have the translation. So I've often featured in those magazines, especially when I was competing back, a few years ago. But recently, Plant-Based Spotlight, is that it? Did a piece on me for Nordic Walking. Again, another way to kind of amp up your walking, especially because we know that so many people are walking. Well, even before the pandemic, but since the pandemic, walking certainly has seen an uptick, as has running. So so I have been, I have had the occasional articles that were done on me, and it's always kind of an odd thing to be on that side.
So Nancy says, can you share one or two of your anti-aging hacks? And I'm most interested if you have anything about like wrinkles and lines, if you have any about those.
Oh, well, wrinkles. Yes. Wear sunglasses, right? That's one. I mean, that's huge. I have to say, first of all, from the fitness side of things, and also just being outside, we know that you should be outside. It's good for our mental well-being, which is so crucial right now. But the number of people whom I see, whether they're just, I don't mean just, but whether they're walking their dogs, whether they're walking to the mailbox, whether they're doing a fitness walk, walking with friends, whatever it might be. So many people, or they might be running or even cycling. So many people I see not wearing sunglasses, and it is truly, truly amazing. First of all, I just don't understand how you can be in full sunshine, especially in summertime, without squinting a lot and getting a headache as a result, which is what happens to me. But one of the best things for those eyes is really to wear sunglasses every single day, every single, whether it's raining, whether it's cloudy. I mean, especially when it's sunny. But make sure too that, fancy sunglasses are fine. But make sure that if you're going to be out for an extended time, I prefer the wrap sunglasses that have a little bit more coverage on the sides. You can also do things like, I would have to look, but I think I have a strategy in there for wrinkles in particular, but to do a soy milk little cleanse, like little mud bath, I would say, soy bath on your eyes. That's certainly another one. And then the other thing too, that's also super, super crucial is to wear sunscreen. I know that that's been drilled home so frequently, but one of my favorite tips that I share in the book that I actually learned from dermatology experts when I was writing, I wrote skin cancer. I have written, I should say, a zillion skin cancer stories for magazines like Glamour and Woman's Day and all of those. And some of early on, and I've been doing this for probably about 20 years, one of the top tips that I got from from several dermatologists was every single day, again, every single day, 365 days a year, the places where you should always, always, always put sunscreen are anywhere from the neck up, face, neck, chest area, and also your hands. Why? Because those are the areas that are most exposed to sunlight. So even if you're not going outside, or if you think that it's cloudy or it's raining, you still need to have the sunscreen on. You're still getting exposure from windows in your car, windows in your house, windows in your office. If you go outside, you're then exposed. So sunscreen, that's a habit that I got into. And one of the, I actually have a few pieces coming out that will re-look at that. It's another tip that gets put into these articles frequently now. But, one of my experts has said it, as have many others, keep that sunscreen out on your counter, bathroom counter, put it right by your toothpaste. We know that I'm hoping that people are brushing their teeth, and just as, when you see that sunscreen right there by your toothpaste, pick up the sunscreen every morning and put it on those areas of the body. So I think those are really, really crucial tips. So those are some of kind of the wrinkle ones, but gosh, there are a zillion of them. I think, first of all, there are a lot of them that relate to movement in the book. And I'm a huge fan, Chef AJ, of getting people to move more. Exercise is certainly part of the equation, but I also want people to move. The average American takes roughly 5,000 steps in a day. That's average. So a lot of people are walking under that, and a lot of people are walking above that. But if you take 5,000 as kind of the average, that's probably not going to get you the physical activity recommendations, or get you to the amount of physical activity that you should be doing each day, which is 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity most days of the week. And these come from the government. So it's 150 minutes at least of moderate intensity activity, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity, or a combination of the two, and the more the better. And that certainly doesn't have to be all at once. So really, I talk a lot in the book about moving more and finding ways to sneak movement into your day, because we've factored movement out of the day. It's, technology is fantastic. I love, love, love my washing machine. I love my dishwasher. I still wash dishes by hand because there's some that just can't go in the dishwasher. But when you think about all of the ways that we've factored movement out of the environment, you have, for instance, even the TV remote. If you're watching a lot of TV, you don't even have to get up out of your chair to change the channel, as we used to do when I was a kid. And so just as we've built an environment we've made the environment very easy to, let's say, eat unhealthy. It's harder to eat healthy in today's environment. It's also harder in today's environment to move. And so we have to constantly be thinking about ways that we can move more. And so I'm a huge proponent, let's say, of tracking your steps, getting whether it's via a smartwatch, whether it's just a good old pedometer. I've used pedometers for decades until I got an Apple Watch. And now I use that, but for a long, long time, I just used my pedometer, and I would track every single day my step counts when I travel. I have all of my step counts from days that I travel. So what I really advise with that is, again, just get yourself a little bit more movement, and having that tracker is a way to think about being accountable. I say, track your steps for 7 days. Don't do anything differently. Just put that pedometer on every morning, put your tracker on, count them for 7 days. After you have 7 days worth, add them all up, divide by 7. That is your daily average step count. Work then to gradually increase that step count. Think about every day, what can you do differently to get more steps in the day? And you can set a goal that can be small. It could be, I want to walk 50 steps more a day. That's fantastic. If that's 1 step more than you did the day before, 50 steps more, that's great. But if you wanted to do, let's say, 500 more steps. So again, really moving throughout the day, tracking the steps, using as much activity to stand, or as much opportunity to stand, Chef AJ, when we have a sitting culture. So I think in my book, I talk about the average American sits 8 to 10 hours a day. That's average. So a lot of people are sitting more. We know that the longer you sit, the more you raise your risk of all sorts of diseases, and also too, longevity then goes down. So we want to make sure that we're building movement back into our day. And notice that I didn't talk anything about structured exercise. I believe in that, but I also want people just to move more. So that's a big one.
So back to the hacks, because a lot of people are saying they're worried about sunscreen because they're saying maybe it's not vegan, maybe it has too many chemicals, maybe it blocks vitamin D absorption. And I got to tell you, the sunglasses thing, that is an important tip that I wish I had known, because I was just diagnosed with early cataracts. And I'm like, the doctor said, well, eat more greens. I'm like, oh, I'm already eat really good. He goes, well, the only thing I can tell you is you have to wear sunglasses all the time. When it's, even when it's overcast. I did not know that.
And Chef AJ, the interesting thing is my husband is actually an optometrist. And so that's one thing I didn't mention. We were talking about wrinkles with the sunglasses, but huge. I mean, you want to protect those eyes because they can get the glare from the sun. And also too, skin cancer is not just around the eyes, but also in the eyes, eye cancer. There is such a thing, but cataracts, glaucoma, etc. I shouldn't say glaucoma, macular degeneration are all, there are issues that you want to consider. So sunglasses are key. And as far as the sunscreens, you can check. I would advise checking any sunscreen manufacturer before you buy it. Go on their website, find out, look in their FAQ section. Often, if that sunscreen manufacturer is vegan, there will be an FAQ in there saying, is your sunscreen vegan? Is your sunscreen cruelty-free? The two don't always mean the same. They're not always, just because it's vegan doesn't always, they don't always translate. So if that manufacturer has an FAQ on there, look there to start. You can always contact the manufacturer. I would also recommend looking at the Environmental Working Group puts out it's not vegan, but they do put out a guide to sunscreens every year that talks about chemicals in the sunscreens. They talk about sunscreens that are more environmentally friendly, that are not going to destroy, let's say, the coral reefs, because we certainly have to worry about when we go into, let's say, not our own territory, oceans, seas, lakes, etc. That sunscreen is going to, shed into the water. So Environmental Working Group is great about releasing a sunscreen guide every year that I always check too, just to see where the sunscreens are on that list.
Right. Well, we did call today's broadcast how to sneak in movements. So how do we do that? Now we waited till we talked for an hour to get to the topic, but you a little bit in some of these interesting.
Yeah, so Chef AJ, so I'm going to just do kind of a rapid fire. I have a list together so that I wouldn't forget. One of my favorite things is to walk as you talk. So when you're on the phone, get a headset like I have. I really don't actually like anything in my ear particularly, so this works for me. But anyway, walk as you talk. So if you're taking a phone call, get up if you can and move. I know, Chef AJ, you're going to love this one because it's what you do, but anytime that you are watching TV or Netflix, or let's just say set aside a time, move, please. Whether that's for your whole entire show. If it's a 2-hour show, you might not want to move that long, but if it's a half hour, maybe that's doable. If the show itself is so intriguing that you don't want to break away from the show, move on commercials. If you're watching something with commercials, I know that a lot of people aren't, but try to move during that time. And again, as you do, Chef AJ, make it a treat. Like watch your favorite movie when you're going to be on your stationary bike, your elliptical, your treadmill, whatever it might be. I also like to chunk a habit with a movement. So think about habits that you do during the day. For instance, brushing your teeth. One of the things that I love to do, and I've done this again for years because I've chunked them. So my habit is I brush my teeth. Easy. My movement when I do that is I balance. So I practice balancing on one foot, and then I practice balancing on the other foot. And my toothbrush is an electric toothbrush, so it's easy. I just switch when I need to move to a different, upper or lower teeth. You can also, for instance, when I'm brewing my tea in the morning and I'm waiting for like the tea to steep, I always do 25 squats. Why? I don't know, just because that's what I chose to do at that time. For me, that works. So I'm saying find a habit that you always do, chunk a movement with it so that it becomes a habit then to do not just the habit, but then to do your routine, but also movement. Always opt for the stairs. This is so, so critical. I know everybody's heard this. It's the most overused piece of advice, but as soon as you stop climbing stairs, you stop climbing stairs. There's just no other way around it. Climb stairs, one step at a time. There was just a study out, I can't remember the time frame, but if you can climb 6 flights of stairs in this time, that meant that your fitness was good. And I'd have to go back and check that. But again, always opt for the stairs. I actually have back in the day when I traveled, I have a no elevator policy unless necessary. So I would, even when I was in New York City, and would head to New York City 2 to 3 times a year to meet with editors, I'm sometimes on the 30th floor. I will not use the elevator unless I have to. So that's a lot of stair climbing. And it doesn't have to be that. Maybe you do 10 flights and then exit at 20. But my point on that too is make sure that you know if you can get out of the stairs, because sometimes they lock. I've already talked about wearing a tracker. If you're getting your mailbox, take a longer route to the mailbox. Sounds easy, but it's not. If you have kids and you live in a neighborhood, let's say, and they go to a bus stop, please don't drive them, walk them. And then you can walk back. I see a lot of my neighbors driving their kids to the bus stop. And certainly when it's icy, rainy, inclement weather, that's one. Chef AJ, I know that you have a dog. I do too. I'm not saying that you should adopt a dog just for this reason, but if you've been thinking about adopting a dog, it's a good reason to, because we know that dog parents actually meet their physical activity guidelines and non-dog parents don't. That's been shown in studies. If adopting a dog is not, if it's not in the cards for you, then maybe ask a neighbor if you can walk a dog. Maybe there's somebody.
Volunteer in a local shelter.
Volunteer.
Dog walkers. Gosh,
Yes.
Every day. Animal Samaritans at shelter, they sit there all day. That's like the biggest mitzvah you could do.
Chef AJ, absolutely. My husband and I actually started at our shelter walking dogs, and we're still active. We're now fostering. I have my first foster dog here. And so walking dogs is huge at shelters. Take exercise snack breaks. We're calling them snack break exercise snacks now. So you don't have to move. I threw out the stats earlier about 150 minutes. 75 minutes, the more the better. That doesn't have to be done all at once. And if you have 1 minute to move, I want you to move for that minute. So throughout the day, I'll often take these little, what I call exercise snacks. I'll squeeze in a little bit of strength training here and there. I might pull out my foam roller. I might pull out, just go down onto the floor, take off my shoes and do a little bit of yoga. These are my exercise snack breaks throughout the day. And if you start doing those, it's great. Stand whenever you can. So if you see a place that you're going to, this may be not necessarily, but if you're going to a doctor's office, let's say, you see all the chairs there, don't wait for your doctor in a chair, wait for your doctor standing. I know that, we've kind of got COVID times going on still, but the same thing applies no matter where you are. Whenever you're waiting, try to stand. If you're sitting a lot, I like to say take stand breaks. So every 30 minutes, if you can't do every 30 minutes, then at least every 60 minutes, set a timer somewhere, and at least every 30 or 60 minutes, get up and move. a little bit more. If you want, you can use a height adjustable desk. I know we've got a lot of people working from home. I don't advocate standing at your desk all day, and you certainly need to move around while you're standing. The other thing I'd like to say too is this is going to sound crazy because we're trying to get chores down to like little pockets, but take a little bit of extra time to do chores. And by that, I mean, if you're bringing groceries in from your car, yeah, it's great to try to take 2 bags of groceries in at one time, but why not just take 1 bag in at a time? You get more steps going in and going out. Same thing with laundry. Same thing with anything that you're doing. So really, Chef AJ, those are just some of my, again, ways to kind of fit in some movement there.
Like that. So you combine it's snacks or snacker size.
Yeah, it is snacker size. And again, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to, if you've got even a flight of steps in your home, just walk up and down your steps for a minute. If you like it, do it for 5 minutes. It's just really, really simple stuff. And also too, if you're ever feeling like, I'm tired, I'm, kind of feeling a little bit down, you're getting a little bit just energy low, do one of these exercise snacks, walk around, walk up and down stairs, things like that. Just get up and do some, stretches like you would, you see your dog, cat, they all stretch all the time. And we're like, we're not going to stretch.
It's time to snacker size. That's cool.
Yeah.
How do you feel about rebounding?
Rebounding is another great thing, Chef AJ. It hasn't been around. I mean, it kind of came and it went, and it's kind of dribbling back in. I love rebounding. I actually put it in my book. I haven't done it in a while. I do have a rebounder here at home. But rebounding is fantastic. It's another, again, activity that you can do without, if you have any kind of injury first of all, you have to be able to bounce, but it takes the impact off of the body. So it's a really great way. You'll hear a lot of the rebounders talk about lymphatic drainage and blah, blah, blah. I think it's a really fun way to move. And if you like rebounding, again, when we talk about doing structured exercise, you want to choose activities that you enjoy. And if you really can't think of an activity that you enjoy, at least
the one you hate the least.
Well, at least find one, that you can hate the least, or that you can tolerate, that you won't really mind going to do. So, yeah.
Exactly. That's great. Well, it's just been so fun getting to know you.
Oh, Chef AJ, you too as well. Yeah, I was going to say it's been a fast hour for sure.
And so, I definitely, guys, check out her book, check out her, they want to know more about you. Do you like people to follow you on social media, to check out your website, which is your name, which is very easy to remember?
Yeah, Chef AJ, thanks for asking. Absolutely. So my website, I'll update with my articles. I need to update a little bit more frequently, but I am on social media. So I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. At Karen Asp Writer. I do have a Facebook presence as well. That's not as good, but yeah. And also too, you'll find on my website, you'll find my email right there. And I'm always happy to answer questions about anything that I've talked about here, Nordic Walking in particular, if any of you have questions, or if you just want to.
I would really like to see it. I wish video, because I'm trying to figure out how you compete in a sport like that.
I know. Well, all I can say is I did bring my poles so people could see them. In case you didn't know what Nordic walking poles looked like, they have a little special tip on the end that you would take off if you're using them in, say, anything but a hard surface. So you would take the tips off if you were in grass or things like that.
Is your husband vegan?
Well, that's an interesting question too. The answer is no, but I have to say, Chef AJ, that throughout the years, he's probably, I would say 95. So here I go with that plant-based, right? He's 95% plant-based. And it was interesting. So he still eats a little bit of fish. He gets into the business meetings and goes there, and, I'm okay with it. He's made tremendous progress throughout the years. He didn't follow me, but because of, I'm not like a chef like you, Chef AJ, but I am, in my house, I'm the chef. And so when I stopped eating animal foods, I said, I'm not cooking. We're not bringing animals into the kitchen. If you want to cook, I guess you get to cook. But he wasn't willing to cook. And so therefore, he started. And also to Chef AJ, the interesting thing is, I don't know, God, this is 10, maybe. I don't even know. I'm a huge proponent of people starting with Meatless Monday. If that, if they're really having trouble, Monday's just a really good day to reset. And if Monday's not your jam, then go to Tuesday, go to Friday. I don't care. But he gave me as a present one year Meatless Monday. And what that meant was that he was going to follow Meatless Monday for a year. This is when he wasn't even close to where he is now. And so he did that, and he has since progressed to about, like I said, about 95% plant-based. And the interesting thing, Chef AJ, is now he like points out, oh my gosh, Karen, did you see like how much sodium was in this XYZ, or did you see, so I mean, even though he's still eating a very scant amount, he's done tremendously. And the funny thing is we had 6 weeks together where he wasn't working at all. So back in March of last year, and we were 6 weeks where all he ate was vegan. All he
But did
ate.
he notice he felt any better? Because I'm curious why we can't get him to go that little bit, especially because when you talk about animals being friends, maybe we don't think of fish as being friends, but Jonathan Balcom wrote a wonderful book about the secret lives of fish.
Well, and that's why it took me, again, the last step I made was really, pescatarian. Then I kept jotting back and forth with the dairy. But yeah, I think that fish get forgotten, and fish are certainly should not be forgotten. But I think that for him, it's, a social pressure. Things like that. But again, Chef AJ, I am just amazed at how far he has come. And the interesting thing is during that time, during our 6 weeks where he wasn't working, his office was shut down and he only ate vegan, he had a lot of time on his hands. And so he exercised a lot more. He only ate my way, and he came out of it and people were like, he's not a heavy guy. So it's not like you look at him and you're like, wow, he needs to lose weight. He doesn't. He just looked a lot like more svelte.
And he had the vegan glow, right?
Well, yeah. And he's like, well, I was, I had to eat Karen's food all.
He was in vegan quarantine.
He was.
Well, I don't know. That's fantastic, though. Thank you. And we have a comment from Layla saying, I love this gal, want everything about you with your goodly athletic advice, etc. So
thank you.
The thing is, and again, we can't make everybody do what we want, but I love when at least the spouse is supportive of the person and doesn't sabotage them, which clearly he doesn't. So that's great.
Well, and Chef AJ, I think it's also too, for those of us who are on this side of the fence, let's say, I think it's important to be just good role models. I don't take the stick and say, you have to do this, you have to do that. The interesting thing too, I should share, early in the, again, during that whole 6 weeks, especially during them, but even afterward, my parents live in town. They're both my dad is 80, my mom is turning 80 this year. I volunteered to go grocery shopping for them throughout when all of this first started. And so Chef AJ, I had the hardest time because my mom would hand me her grocery list. They are not vegan, but they certainly have moved their diet too. And, mom would have like milk. I'm like, Mom, I can't go to the grocery store and buy milk for you. I just can't. Like, can we switch you? Would you be willing to try soy milk? So Chef AJ, amazingly. So I got my mom and dad hooked on this, just soy milk. They love it so much that they've now changed their milk to soy milk. They're now eating like so many vegan products. And I know, again, not vegan, but like their bread now is vegan, whereas their bread before wasn't. And so it's interesting, again, just being that role model can really, you just never know where the shift is going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, if you did shake a stick at them, you've got two. We saw them. Big ones.
Yeah, I know, right? Except that they're very light, Chef AJ. So I'm not sure. I think I'd have to like take the end off the stick and poke somebody, but they're really light.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful articles you write, the books, the work that you do. And it's so great having you in the journalist space because, it's awesome.
Well, thank you, Chef AJ, for all that you are doing. My gosh, you're certainly a legend and a rock star in all of this. So I appreciate your work and appreciate you having me on your show again. It's such an honor. And FYI, everybody, look out for Chef AJ in the fall issue of Forks Over Knives
magazine, because Karen is writing an article about me, and she writes really good things. I put a lot of thought into them. So
thank you. Well, thank you. And everybody, again, feel free to tag me if you have questions.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow. Let's see, I'm on the wrong page. Who is my guest tomorrow? Oh, another fitness person, Sharon McDowell Larson. So thank you. Thanks again, Karen. Take care.